Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Podcast. I'm Jason Abrams, and this is the place where we lift the curtain on the world of real estate like never before. Every week, I sit down with visionaries, pirates, and mavericks. We're here to document, demonstrate, and most importantly, demystify their game-changing models and systems. What secrets propel them to the top? And how are they living their dreams? This is about passion, it's about strategy, but above all, it's about real, tangible success. So buckle up and let's dive in. This is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Podcast. Who wants more business? No, I'm kidding. I know everybody does. Friends, this is a special episode of the MREA podcast. You have a guru, and I'm not just calling him that. He has been called that by other people, who's going to tell us exactly how to make all of our current clients into marketing volunteers. It's incredible. Friends, he has 7 best-selling books. He's created 6 multi-million-dollar companies. He has consulted for more than 700 brands, including Nike, Oracle, IBM, and the United Nations. I am talking about none other than Jay Baer. This gentleman is an absolute force of nature. Sit back and buckle up. This is Jay Baer. And I am joined by one of my favorite authors, Jay Baer. Jay, how are you, sir?
Great to see you, my friend. I am fantastic. Delighted to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. And, look, we've had a lot of brilliant authors on our program. We're blessed. But we have not had a brilliant author who was voted as a global guru in multiple different categories, has helped over 700 brands, including Nike and everybody else. I've seen the keynotes. I've read the books. I've seen the YouTube videos. I don't even know how to describe what it is that you are or what it is that you do. So it's hard for me to say, how did you become a blank? How did you become everything?
Well, very slowly and then all at once. I started in politics, actually. I was a political campaign consultant and worked for Senator John McCain for several years as a marketing specialist for the late senator, and realized that politics was not a business I wanted to do long-term. Good decision in that regard. And so I got into what we would consider now to be sort of traditional marketing because the internet wasn't invented. And then I ended up as the spokesperson for the Arizona Department of Juvenile Correction. So my job was to give tours of juvenile prisons, which is an even worse gig than I just made it sound in the previous sentence. And I said, I really don't want to give any more prison tours. And I was having beers with some friends of mine from school, and they had started the very first internet company in the history of the Southwest. And they said, this internet company is getting a little bigger, and we don't know anything about marketing. I said, well, that's fine. Because when you say the word internet, I don't really know what that word means. Because this is the days of AOL and CompuServe and things like that, Prodigy. The open internet, quote unquote, was a very scary place that nobody went to. And I said, I don't care. I will not give another prison tour. Went in the next day, quit, and found myself within 48 hours as the vice president of sales and marketing of an internet company, having never been on the internet, which is an interesting first day at work. But that's not as crazy as it sounds, Jason, because at that point, nobody had. This is 1993. Here's how early that was. We sold the domain name Budweiser.com to Anheuser-Busch that year for 50 cases of beer. We literally sold it for 50 cases of beer. That's how long ago it was. So I have had a front row seat to literally, when I say the entire history of digital, I mean the entire history of digital. So I've only made 2 good decisions in my life. Convinced my wife to marry me, which is the hardest I've ever worked at anything, literally. And then second, had the good fortune to get into the internet and digital marketing at the very beginning and stay involved along the way. So over the past 30 years, I've had a number of high-level global consulting firms helping companies solve digital marketing and digital customer experience challenges, written lots of books and given thousands of speeches, told a lot of people about tequila in my spare time. And here I am with you, my friend.
Well, we're honored to have you. It's an absolutely unbelievable story. The thing that I love about it is that you start in this internet marketing before anyone knows who it is, but you made a decision, whether it was knowing or unknowing, to be an immovable object within that space. Because Gary once told me, by the way, gang, when we mention Gary, we get new listeners every day. We're talking about Gary Keller. Together with Jay Papasan and Dave Jenks, may he rest in peace, they wrote the book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which of course is the namesake for our show. And Gary says that a big part of success as an industry is making the decision to be an immovable rock within it. And simply surviving and staying in it over time ultimately ends up yielding results.
Yeah, I think the number one least valued but most critically important business success criteria is simply patience, right? It is simply outlasting your competition. People ask me sometimes on shows, like, do you have sort of a mantra or something? And I do. And it's a sign that's right on my wall. My mom got it for me the first day I started my own business. And on that sign, it says, remember, some days you are the pigeon and some days you are the statue. And I love that because, it really reemphasizes that it's never going as well as you think it is, and it's never going as poorly as you think it is. But if you can kind of keep an even keel and just commit to outlasting your competition, that's half the battle, literally.
It's brilliant. All right, gang, this is the time of the show where we're going to give you a specific model. Now, Jay is going to teach us exactly how to turn your clients into volunteer marketers. It's okay if you have no idea what that means. Either do I. We're going to learn it together. But you don't have to take the notes. We take all the notes for you. The notes come out every Thursday. They come out via email. It's a PDF. So if you're not getting it, go to MREAnotes.com. That's MREAnotes.com. I'm taking the notes. Jay, tell me exactly how to turn my clients into volunteer marketers.
Absolutely. And this is drawn from my best-selling book, Talk Triggers, which is the best-selling book on word-of-mouth marketing ever written. Feel free to pick it up if you want to go deeper on this topic. The principle here, gang, is that the best way to grow any business, your business, my business, is to have your customers do the growing for you. This has been true since the first caveman sold an arrowhead to another caveman. It remains true. And I will tell you a little secret. Word of mouth is actually more powerful today than it was yesterday. It will be more powerful again tomorrow. It is having a renaissance. And the reason that is that word of mouth, genuine word of mouth out of somebody's mouth hole, is the one thing, and arguably the only thing, that AI can't fake. AI can fake a lot of things, but it can't fake me telling you, you should hire this agent. And I don't think anybody listening believes that word of mouth and referrals is anything other than the lifeblood of this industry. But let me ask you a corollary question. Do you have an actual strategy for creating word of mouth? And the answer is almost assuredly no. But don't feel bad about that. Fewer than 1% of all businesses have an actual word of mouth strategy. Isn't that strange? We know how important it is. It's the lifeblood of businesses, especially in this industry, but yet we take it for granted. We just assume that we will get word of mouth, and here's why. This has been happening for approximately 60 years now. It's a big blind spot in business. And the blind spot is this. We believe incorrectly that competency will create conversations. And it does not. We don't talk about good. We talk about different. Let me tell you about an experience I had last night, Jason. It was perfectly adequate. Says nobody ever. Because it's not a story. There's no story for me to tell. There's no story for you to hear. And so the sum total of that is the story doesn't get told. Competency is important. Competency is what keeps your clients in place. But in a business like this, where your client interactions may be years apart, it's more critical to get today's clients to tell tomorrow's clients that you're the agent for them. And it's especially important in this business because, and I don't want to overstep here, but the reality is, all the customers think you're exactly the same. They think you're exactly, there's no perceived difference amongst agents. I mean, yes, the Keller Williams brand helps, and there might be some sort of reputational advantage in certain markets, et cetera. But as an industry, nobody has secret sauce. There's no secret sauce. And so what makes you the agent of choice is, in most cases, who did you use? Were you happy? Tell me a story about your experiences with this particular agent. So here's what you have to do. You've got to give your clients a story to tell. But the story is almost never in any business what you actually do or sell. Because that's what the money's for, right? So, hey, I hired this great agent and they did all the paperwork and I got the price I wanted. That's not really a story, because you know what that's called? Real estate, right? It's again, we ignore things that are expected. We discuss things that we don't expect. Just as an aside, this is why you never see 3-star reviews. Mathematically, if you look at reviews distribution, you see what? A ton of 1 stars, warning, terrible. A ton of 5 stars, hey, awesome. There's not a lot of 3 stars. Because what compels you to tell that story? Yeah, I got about what I paid for, 3 stars. People just don't take the time to write it because there's no story. So you've got to come up with what we call, in my book and in the business, a talk trigger. And a talk trigger is an operational choice that you make that is designed to create conversations. It is literally something that you do differently solely to unlock the conversational power of your clients, to turn today's clients into tomorrow's clients. You are arming them with a story to tell.
It's a big idea.
It is massively effective. There is a restaurant in Sacramento called Skip's Kitchen. It's owned by Skip and his wife. They used to run, they were the GMs of all like the Chili's organizations in Northern California. Like, we don't want to work for Chili's. We want to do our own thing. So they opened this really good hamburger restaurant. And they have really good hamburgers, right? But so do a lot of people in Northern California, a lot of people in Sacramento. It's kind of hard to create word of mouth around having a good hamburger when you're a good hamburger restaurant. This is the whole idea of competency doesn't create conversations, right? They expect you to have good hamburgers. So to have that, it's like, yep, that's what I thought I was going to get. What they do is it's a counter service restaurant, right? So we walk in, you get the menu board above, and you look at the board, and you say, okay, I want a patty melt and onion rings and a chocolate shake, and then they'll bring it out to your table. We all know how this works. But at Skip's, after you order, but before you pay, the counter person whips out a deck of playing cards from under the counter and fans them out on the counter, face down in front of you. And they look you dead in the eye and they say, pick a card. And you pick a card. And if you get a joker, your entire meal is free. And it doesn't matter whether it's just you and your wife or an entire high school soccer team that you came with you. And when people win, they go batshit crazy, right? They're freaking out, right? They're calling their mom. They're putting it on Instagram, like confetti cannon. It's like a whole thing. That's their talk trigger. It is so powerful that they've been in business for 15 years. Lines out the door every day. In the entire history of the restaurant, they've spent a grand total of 0 cents on paid advertising and marketing.
That's unbelievable, Jay. It seems so simple. I'm like listening to you and I'm having this light bulb moment. Gary always says that the best things are the simplest, and yet everything wants to naturally become more complex.
Yeah, because it makes people feel better, makes them feel smarter when they make it more complicated than it is. I mean, this is my specialty. I mean, I've written 7 books. This is what I do. I take things that really work for business and I give it to you in a way that you can do it. And my greatest compliment is when I do shows like this or speeches and people say, I can't believe what you told me because it feels like common sense, yet I've never done it before. And I'm like, exactly. This is my role in the world. So at Skip's, they have this huge sign outside, neon sign, says Skip's Kitchen. Despite that, in Sacramento, nobody calls it Skip's Kitchen. They call it That Joker Restaurant. There's an amazing sentiment from Robert Stevens, who was the founder of Geek Squad, the computer services company. And this isn't entirely true, but it's true enough. And Robert says that advertising is a tax paid by the unremarkable. Advertising is a tax paid by the unremarkable. And there's a lot of truth to that because many of the most successful businesses in every industry are those that advertise the least. And they're able to do that because their customers are the advertising. Jason, if I tell you, think about hotel chains that exist, and then I say chocolate chip cookie, do you know which hotel chain I'm talking about?
DoubleTree. You get the chocolate chip cookie when you check in, and it's warm and delicious.
DoubleTree Hotels by Hilton. We did a huge case study with the Hilton organization in the book. They have a cookie oven in every hotel. You check in, they give you a warm chocolate chip cookie. They hand it to you, hand-to-hand pass. That's the brand standard. They give out approximately 75,000 cookies a day globally, which is a lot of cookies, like no question. But we did this whole research project with them. And it turns out that approximately 1/3 of their customers have told somebody a story about the cookie within 30 days of staying at the hotel. 75,000 people a day get a cookie. That's an average of 25,000 messengers per day telling the story about the cookie. It's perhaps not a coincidence that DoubleTree spends less on advertising and marketing than any other brand in their competitive set. Because the cookie is the ad, the guests are the marketing department. Now, it's not free, you gotta buy cookies, but it's cheaper than television. There's no question about that. That is not an accident. It is a choice. And when you make word of mouth purposeful, when you make word of mouth strategic, when you make word of mouth operational instead of random acts of kindness, it can propel your business to heights you never thought were possible. But you have to have a plan. So if I may, I'll give you an abbreviated version of the plan. When you're creating a talk trigger, there are 4 requirements of a talk trigger. 4 things that must be true for your word of mouth device to work over time, okay? First thing is it has to be repeatable. And what I mean by that is it has to be something that everybody gets access to, who's sort of in your customer orbit. One of the mistakes that we tend to make in business is say, well, let's only do something special for our biggest customers or our newest customers or somebody who bought a really big property, et cetera. And I understand why people think that way, but you're just truncating the number of messengers that are possible. So instead, you want to make sure that everybody gets access to it. And if I was a working agent, I wouldn't even necessarily restrict my talk trigger to people who actually transact. It would be anybody I interact with, anybody I show properties to, et cetera, anybody who I have a listings conversation with. I would try to maximize the number of experiences because then you create more marketers on the backside. So that's the first thing, is be repeatable. Second thing is it has to be remarkable. And when I say remarkable, what I mean by that is the definition of remarkable is worthy of remark. It has to be a story worth telling. This is another mistake that people make. They think, okay, we're going to create a word of mouth wave. We're going to ignite a word of mouth tsunami on behalf of our clients. And we're going to do that by giving them a free pen. It's like, bro, that ain't going to do it. Like that is not outside the expectation curve enough where people are like, free pen. It's just got to be different. And sometimes it can be unexpected in a really interesting way. There's another restaurant in Los Angeles called La Boucherie. It's at the very top of the Standard building. It's the tallest restaurant in Los Angeles. Incredible views. Like, people go there for the views. Great steaks, of course. But their talk trigger is not great views or steaks. You know you're going to get that. That's what the restaurant's known for. The talk trigger, the thing that spawns conversations, Jason, is when you get there and you order your steak, they come out with a large walnut box and they open the lid of that box and it's lined with black velvet. And inside that black velvet lined walnut box is 11 different steak knives, one from each major steak eating country in the world. There's an Argentinian steak knife, there's an Australian steak knife, there's a Japanese steak knife, there's a French steak knife. And you, as the diner, get to pick your knife for your meal. That's the story that people tell, right? It's an operational choice. So it has to be remarkable. Story worth telling has to be repeatable. Third thing is it has to be reasonable, okay? The other mistake that people make is they say, well, okay, Jay's right. We got to get people talking about us. So what we're going to do is, guys, we're going to have a contest and we're going to collect the information for everybody that we show homes to. And one of them is going to win a car. And that never works because it's too big. So there's been a lot of research done on this, some by me, some by contemporaries. And somewhat interestingly, it shows that when the outcome is too big, it actually squishes conversation because people think it might be bogus. Like, oh, they're not going to really give away a car, right? They don't want to rope their friends into it and think it's bunk, right? So think about DoubleTree. Arguably the most successful word of mouth initiative in history. They've been giving away the chocolate chip cookies for 34 years. Every day for 34 years. It's just a cookie, man. Like, it's a really good cookie, but it's just a cookie. It's not a Caribbean island. It's not a car. It's not a bespoke massage. It's a chocolate chip cookie. But it works because it is, yes, a good cookie, but you don't expect to get a cookie baked in the lobby handed to you, right? So it doesn't have to be big. The fourth thing it's got to be is relevant or relatable, if you prefer. And what we mean by this is it's got to make sense in the context of what you're truly about as an individual or as a brand. So the other mistake people make is they say, okay, we're going to create a lot of word of mouth and we're going to rent an elephant and we're going to put our logo on a blanket over the elephant. We're going to walk that elephant down Main Street in Cincinnati or wherever you're from. And that'll create conversation, and it will. But the conversation is, why an elephant? Like, it's too weird. It doesn't make any sense. So there's a locksmith in New York City called Jay Baer. And Jay is not only the number one rated locksmith in New York City, he is in the top 5 highest rated businesses in New York City of any kind, which is a pretty high bar to clear. His talk trigger is that when he finishes rekeying your apartment or whatever he's doing, he does a thorough, comprehensive security audit of the entire premises. Checks every window, checks every door, like this lock is a little sketchy, you might want to think about working on that. Oils all the locks as well. Every other locksmith, every other competitor he has does the same service for $199. Jay does it for free. And that's the story that people tell. Now, making sure your talk trigger is relatable. Locksmith security audit. We talked about DoubleTree a moment ago. Imagine if those two talk triggers were reversed. Imagine Jay Baer comes to your house and says, hey, Jason, I just finished rekeying the front door. Before I go, would you like a warm chocolate chip cookie that I baked in my locksmith van?
It doesn't work, Jay.
You would say, no, I am not interested in that. I have significant food safety concerns, among other problems. No, man, hard pass, but thanks. Or if you went to a DoubleTree hotel and they said, Jason, thanks for coming. Before you get to your room, would you like us to do a thorough security audit of your hotel room? You'd be like, if this is even remotely necessary, I would like to check out now. If
it's
that's
so good,
fine, right? Doesn't work.
So good.
So locksmith security audit. Now you might be thinking, okay, I get the locksmith thing, but a DoubleTree hotel isn't a bakery. So like, why does the cookie work? Here's why. So each of the 20, I think it's 23 now, brands that are in the Hilton umbrella have their own position. You got the Conrad, we've got the Hilton Garden Inn, the Hampton Inn, all the different flags. They all have their own positioning, right? They're trying to compete for a slightly different market segment. They don't want to compete against one another because that's corporately inefficient. So some are business travelers, some are more like Gen Z focused, blah, blah, blah. DoubleTree, according to their chief marketing officer, who we worked with for the book, their positioning is the warm welcome. The warm welcome. They want to be disproportionately good at the, 7 minutes between when you set foot in the property and when you set foot in your room. They want to be really good at that. So they put more time, money, effort into lobby design and front desk clerk training than most people at that price point. And the cookie is a huge part of that. Warm welcome, warm cookie. Locksmith security audit. So it can't be too weird. Those are the 4 requirements of a talk trigger. Repeatable, remarkable, reasonable, relatable. Come up with something that hits all 4 of those, something that your clients don't expect, something that isn't necessarily, you sold me a house. And you'll be well on your way to, as promised, turning your clients into volunteer marketers.
Dude, it's absolutely genius. But now we have a problem because I know every single real estate agent within the sound of my voice, and we have the most successful agents on the planet that listen to this show, are all saying, okay, give me an example in our industry, Jay. Just
Sure.
Give me the answer. Can you play this out for me? I'm a real estate agent.
Of course. So there is an agent in Tallahassee who uses what we call talkable usefulness, which is when you're just more helpful than they expect you to be, and that's the story they tell. He wrote a 63-page downloadable PDF called How to Sell a Home on Your Own in Florida. He literally gives FSBO candidates all the information they need to do a FSBO, and then it ends up being his best client leads device because people realize it's way harder than they thought, right? He's just giving them too much. There is an agent in Houston, Texas. This is probably my favorite. They have a sign writer. So at the bottom of their signs, it says, $200 worth of free tacos with purchase of this home. Every one of their listings, you get $200 worth of free tacos if you buy the house. Now, in the big scheme of the price of the house, $200 is nothing, but you're like, wait, it's not a $200 Amazon gift card. It's not $200 off the listing price. It's not even like home warranty, we'll throw it in. It's like, wait, $200 for the free tacos, that's a story people will tell. And this is when you kind of go back to this idea of reasonable, right? You're not like, okay, we're gonna drop the price. We're gonna, throw in some sort of special thing. You get to use the boat, or we're gonna sell it furnished or whatever. $200 worth of free tacos, right? So it's not about the money. I can't emphasize that enough. It's not about the money. It's about the story.
Okay, so I'm going to go and I'm going to build this for my business tomorrow. I'm so motivated by hearing what you're saying. I'm going to go take action. Can you walk me through what process you would use? Should I just start whiteboarding and brainstorming? Where am I going to go wrong? Make it easy for me.
Yeah, so a couple things to think about. One, it's possible, not always, but it is possible that you might already have sort of a prototype talk trigger now. There might be something that you're doing that is a little bit different that people notice, and you just need to sort of put a finer point on it and polish it up a little bit. So one of the best things you can do is to interview your current and recent clients and just ask them, hey, have you told anybody ever about working with me, and what did you say? Right? And just see if there's some commonality there, because that will help, especially on that relatability point, right? Where it's like, okay, what do people think about you now, and how do you accelerate and accentuate that? So that's a good first step. Beyond that, yes, you want to sit down and really start to think about, all right, what could we do that meets those 4 requirements that we talked about? Repeatable, reasonable, remarkable, relatable. And where would we do it? Where would we launch it inside the business? Like, how do we actually execute on it? Is it unexpected? Is it delivered at a key point in the journey? And then, is it operationally viable? Like, could we actually do this? We worked with a large national group of apartment complexes and developers, and we come up with a whole talk trigger for them, which was, when you sign your lease, you get to go to a special portal that we built. And there was 20 or 30 different artworks there. And you would just click the one you like the best. And we wouldn't tell you why. And then with the day of move-in, there would be a shower curtain with that artwork on it, just in the home, right? Didn't tell them, just showed up. And they're like, oh my God, this is crazy. But you got to provision for that. You got to build it. You got to have a shower curtain guy. So you can't just wing it. You got to think through, how do we actually do this every day? And I love what we said at the top of the show, this idea of persistence and patience, because this is exactly how word of mouth works. When I say word of mouth, what people think is a stunt, a campaign, an initiative, public relations. When I say word of mouth, what you hear is a 30-day push. And I'm telling you that the way you should hear that is literally the exact opposite. If you do this well, you turn it on and you turn it off when you die. There's a reason why I wear a plaid suit every single time I hold a microphone. It is my talk trigger.
I gotta tell you, because as you're going through this, I literally was waiting for you to come up and take a breath, and I was going to mention the suits. So when we started connecting with each other, you said that I get to pick the color of the suit that you were going to wear to one of our events. And you always wear a plaid suit. And I got to tell you, I tried to defy it. I have spent more time on Google Images looking at you than you're chosen. And dude, you got a lot of plaid suits. And I've told this story now to 3 or 4 people.
See, it works. 18, I think, is the current suit count. My suit guy is very happy with that decision of a talk trigger, for sure. So then you want to sit down and start riffing on some ideas. Ideally, 3 kind of fleshed out candidates is best, right? 3 things like, you know what? We think it's cool. We think we'll talk about it. We think we could do it. We think we could do it forever. It's not going to cost us so much money that it becomes a burden. And then you want to pick the one you like the best and you roll it out in test. So ideally, either roll it out for a certain amount of time, or even better, if you have the volume, you roll it out to every nth customer, right? So every 3rd customer gets the talk trigger test, etc. And then you measure the talkability. This is going to get a little mathy, I apologize, but this is the right way to do it, okay? The wrong way to do it is to get a 6-pack of beer and a pizza and just riff. The right way to do it is to actually measure and test it and to see if it works before you roll it out. So there's 2 ways to measure it. One is observed talkability. So observed talkability is you give it to every third customer for, let's say, 90 days. And you say, okay, did anybody mention it? Did they spit it back to you, right? Like you just spit the suit thing back to me. I didn't have to prompt you. We mentioned it off air, right? So that's observed talkability. I didn't have to remind you. I didn't have to ask you. You told me it, right? So that's yes. If they write it in a review, if they email you, oh, that was so great that you gave us the, whalebone pipe or whatever. If they tell you proactively, that's observed. The second way to measure it is called ascertained talkability. So this is usually a week is about the right interval after the person experiences the talk trigger. You send them a note and say, by the way, have you told anybody a story about our time together? Yes or no? If yes, what did you say? Third question, did it happen to be any of these things? And you give them like a list of like 5 and you hide the talk trigger in the middle, right? So did you tell somebody about blank, 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 plaid suit, blank, blank, right? And then you do the math on that. So you combine observed talkability and ascertained talkability. And if your talk rate, the percentage of people who have told the story, is 15% or higher, then there's a there, and you should roll it out to your whole business.
You just made it so simple. I absolutely love it, man. And the book, Talk Triggers, goes into this in incredible detail.
Oh, yeah. There's like 35 examples. And then the how-to, the 6-step process is much more detailed, right? Like how do you actually launch the survey and da-da-da-da. There's a lot more detail in there. It's a really good audiobook as well, read by myself and my co-author. And a lot of people prefer that format, of course. But yeah, if you like it, fantastic. We have a talk trigger for the book, of course. So the talk trigger for the book, Jason, was if you buy the book and you don't like it for any reason, we will buy you any book that you want in the world. So one guy said, I don't like the book. Not enough case studies, which I thought was puzzling because there are a lot. Another guy said, I don't like the book. Wait for it. There's too many case studies. And I said, okay, you guys need to get together and figure out who's lying because somebody has mischaracterized this. But the one guy, the first guy, it was a little bit of a cheeky move. He wanted us to buy him some out of print Victorian cookbook or something. And it was like $1,000. And I'm like, dude, that's a little above the line. But we did it. We bought it for him. And then we turned it into content, baby. We made a live video of us buying it on Amazon and spending the money. And it was like a whole thing.
That's awesome. All right, man, I want to switch gears. I want to go all the way back to ancient Athens. There is a gentleman there named Epicurus, and he buys this awesome downtown villa. And instead of lecturing on life to huge audiences, he invites small groups over to hang out in his garden, and it becomes known as Epicurus' garden. We'd like you to join us in our garden and ask you some questions about life.
Okay, I'll do my best.
You travel all over the world speaking and teaching and writing and researching. What have you learned from your audience? Because you're always doing the teaching, but you're also an incredible observer of people. What have you learned?
Literally everything. Because I don't write a book or a presentation based on my ideas. I only write them based on audience questions and client questions. So I don't say, I want to write a book about X. What I do, and I've been doing this for decades, is I carefully write down the questions that people ask me. And when I start to see a concentration of questions, I realize that there is a knowledge gap amongst business people. And if I think I can answer that question or solve it in some way, then I will do the research. I do a ton of first-party research. I do the research to validate what I think is the solution, and then I create a speech, and then I create a book. So most people who do what I do, they write a book and then they write a speech based on the book. I do the opposite. So I come up with the idea based on audience questions. Then I do the speech. And at the conclusion of the speech, every time when it's in sort of development phase, I say to the audience, if you have an example of a talk trigger, please see me after the presentation. I'll be right back there. Every single case study in every book I've ever written came from the audience, not from me. That's why I never use case studies that anybody's ever heard of before.
Man, that blows me away, which then kind of leads me to the next question, which is you've been doing this for decades. You're wildly successful. You're literally doing this call from a palatial estate in Mexico on vacation. Why, though? Like, you don't need to be on this podcast. You certainly don't need to be doing this on vacation. Matter of fact, man, you don't ever have to pick up a pen again. I know. Why? What gets you out of bed like this?
I am a teacher. My mom was a teacher. My stepdad was a teacher. My dad was an entrepreneur, right? So the combination of those things, I can't escape it, right? Like I've got friends here in town in Puerto Vallarta. They've not been here before. I've spent the last 6 days teaching them about what's great about this city, right? It's all I know. It's the only thing I'm good at. And when I'm not teaching, it makes me feel bad. And so my friends always, give me grief about it. They're like, you have an unsatiable thirst for knowledge and for education. And I do. Like if it paid better, I would have been a college professor 30 years ago.
By the way, Gary says the same thing. He's a teacher at heart, and that's what he wants to be doing. 2 more questions. Next, I want to talk about money for a second, because everyone that's listening to the sound of your voice today strives to make it. Now that you've made a lot of it, what does money mean to you? And has it changed over the years?
For sure, it's changed over the years. I mean, at first you think about it in a really transactional context. But what I've discovered, and I was fortunate enough to be able to kind of make this pivot fairly early, is what money buys you is the ability to say no, which is incredibly underrated as a success equation. I literally don't do anything I don't want to do. I don't work with people I don't want to work with. I don't go on podcasts I don't want to go on. And it's not like I have FU money or anything like that, but it buys you the ability to say no, to build a life for yourself that is 100% of your own creation. And the liberty that that gives you is extraordinary. And I wish everybody tuning in gets there.
Might be one of the better answers we've ever had on that, Jay. I love that. All right, final question. Everyone listening needs more of you in their life. And by the way, friends, I'm not suggesting it. I'm prescribing it. I'm telling you, you do. Jay, how do they get more of you? Where do you want them all to go?
You can find me on LinkedIn, of course, Jay Baer. My website is jaybaer.com. You get 7 books to choose from, including one that's only about real estate called Utility for Real Estate. And if you like tequila, follow me on Instagram, TikTok. It's Tequila Jay Baer. I'm the #2 tequila influencer in the world.
Yeah, man, that kind of came out of nowhere the other day, because I'm looking at your stuff, and then all of a sudden I got sucked into it. That's a passion you and I both share. You know about it, and I just like drinking it.
I can solve that. Again, I am a teacher, right? So I'm just teaching about something else. Happy to help anytime.
Jay, I love your mission. You're such a good friend of the real estate industry. Thank you for everything that you've done. And more importantly, thank you for everything that you will do, because I have a feeling you are just getting started.
Thanks very much. Always great to spend time with you, and love your community too.
I could have listened to him all day. As a matter of fact, I did. We cut out the other 2 hours of the episode because it was just that good. We just kept talking. He understands humans at such a deep level, and his model is really simple. Number 1, my talk trigger has to be repeatable. Everybody needs to get access to it, and I need to be able to do it again and again and again. It has to be remarkable, meaning if I'm doing something and I might call it surprise and delight, or I might call it delightful, but nobody else talks about it, then was it really worth doing at all? It's got to be reasonable. You can't give a car away to every new customer, and I get that. And then it has to be relatable. It has to make sense in the context by which I'm presenting it. They're very simple rules, and I want to just tell you this. If you were to sit down and get this right and actually go through this process, this might be the one thing that you could do for your business that would make more of an impact than anything else that you can do. What are you remembered for? What are you known for? It's funny, we joke about the plaid suits that he wears, but I've told that story to 5 or 10 different people. As a matter of fact, I told that story to Gary Keller and said, we gotta hire this dude. Let me tell you about his suits. Looking back, I fell for it hook, line, and sinker because it didn't feel like a gag. It didn't feel like a gimmick. It was just something that I had never heard before. Friends, give this a go. If you can figure out how to go be repeatable, remarkable, reasonable, and relatable, you will have the key to a word-of-mouth business. Go forth and do likewise. There it is. That wraps another episode. Friends, I don't know what you're taking out of this. I really don't. I'll tell you what I want you to be taking out of it, which is these are the people that are having tremendously big lives. And the reason it's happening is because they're setting up the models and systems to do just that. Gary Keller told me that leadership is teaching people how to think. so that they do the things they need to do when they need to do them, so that ultimately they get the things they want when they want to have them. And that's what I want for you. You're all leaders, but it begins with leading ourselves. If you're enjoying this podcast, I want you to click the subscribe button anywhere that you get your podcasts. We want to be the voice in your head every single week, and every week we're dropping new content. We also send out a newsletter at the conclusion of every show to make sure that you get the highest points in the models and systems that were discussed. So if you want to sign up, I need your name and your email address. Head over to the millionaireagentpodcast.com. millionaireagentpodcast.com. Enter your name and your email address, and every week that newsletter will be in your box. Friends, you just went on a journey. I hope that what happens between now and the next time we meet is absolutely wonderful for you. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not Keller Williams Realty LLC and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information. Warning: you must comply with the TCPA and any other federal, state, or local laws, including for B2B calls and texts. Never call or text a number on any do not call list, and do not use an auto dialer or artificial voice or pre-recorded messages without proper consent. Contact your attorney to ensure your compliance.